confession of faith. We're moving on from Exodus. We're moving on from our look at the law of God, and now we're transitioning back into looking at some things on the Second London Baptist Confession. Today we're going to deal with chapter 7, which is of God's covenant, and we're going to deal with paragraph 1. And paragraph 1 reads as such. Maybe.
Hang on. I didn't move the pointer back.
Oh. That's kind of an irritating thing with slides, isn't it?
You got to have the right focus.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. All right. So this is paragraph 1 of the Second London Baptist Confession, chapter 7. It says the distance between God and the creature is so great that although reasonable creatures do owe obedience to Him as their Creator, yet they could never have attained the reward of life, but by some voluntary condescension on God's part, which He hath been pleased to express by way of covenant. There we go. Now I can see. So, okay, we're gonna. This looks like a lot of words, right? People might look at this and say, "This is a word salad." What does this actually mean? We want to look at it concept at a time, because the overarching message essentially is this: it speaks to the necessity of a covenant between God and man. That is the overall point of this particular paragraph, that we need God to come to us and establish His covenant. We can't go to God and on our terms and approach Him. That's something that the creature cannot do. So let's break it down and see what the paragraph is saying, because there are certainly other truths in this paragraph that are taught that are very important to understand why God must come to us in order to establish this covenant. He has to speak to us, and as the word says, condescend. Condescension is how it says it there. God must condescend to us. How do you like being spoken to in a condescending manner?
Depends on who's saying. Generally, no.
Yeah. What do you think? Do you like that? People talking to you as if you're stupid, or as if you're a 2-year-old or something like that? That's kind of irritating sometimes, is it not?
No words came out of my mouth.
So condescension is usually something that we are irritated with from one another. But you understand that God is higher.
I love you so much.
So condescension means.
I'm so very irritated. I don't know. I'm just listening.
Yeah, maybe we need some marriage counseling here.
Okay.
Condescension means. No, so anyway, we understand that God is higher than us, right? We get that?
Yes.
Both in His being, in His knowledge, in His power, in all things, God is above us. And so if God is going to come to us, He must condescend to us. So the idea of God condescending to us is something that we ought to be grateful for, not be irritated with. However, our second grade teacher, that's another story altogether. But
this means God was gracious and condescending to us.
Yes, and amen.
He's so far beyond us.
And we will get to that. We'll get to that here in just a moment. But yes,
You still have problems with your second grade teacher?
I know, right? Will you give it up already?
Let it go. You know who?
Wow.
Yeah, it was Monica's teacher too, and I loved her.
Oh.
Well, she might have been like, I had her the first year she came fresh out of college,
Yeah,
and
right
she
on
was
college.
she was high on her degree.
I loved Mrs. McGuire.
Oh yeah, I couldn't stand her. She's the only one. She paddled me. You know what she paddled me for? She paddled me for forgetting a pencil.
Shame.
I'd forgotten a pencil for her class, and so she paddled me.
Did
With her-
you ever forget a pencil again? I just
Oh
wanted to.
sure, yeah. I totally did not learn anything in that class.
She paddled.
Because my mind was shut. Now, to be honest,
Yeah.
there have been a lot of things that
She had a yardstick and she turned it on the skinny end. Whipped me with that, and I had bruises. And my dad went to school and said, "You ever whip my daughter like this again?" I'm the only one that can put bruises on her.
Yeah.
Right. That's exactly what he said. I will take care of it. Don't take that away from me.
Yeah.
My God, given right.
See,
I got the belt probably every day.
well, that happens.
Yeah, didn't do any good. Sorry.
Oh well, you don't know. You may have been worse had you not had the belt. So
Maybe.
it might have done some good.
Heavens.
It doesn't mean you're perfect. It might have done some good though. You never know. That's the thing. People say, well, I lived okay, but
What? Nothing.
all right.
Not
Well,
like
anyway,
that.
y'all.
That never. It never.
There is a
scarred me.
fundamental and infinite difference between
Yeah.
God and creation.
You know, I'm not scarred by it. I love him. He's my dad.
That's right.
Yeah.
No discipline at the time seems enjoyable, right?
Right.
It's painful. So, but we learn from it. So that's what the
Got
scripture
older,
says.
I can honestly say I can look back and say that I never got a whipping I didn't deserve.
Oh yeah.
And I should have got a lot more than what I got.
Yes and amen, brother. Yes and amen. All right, so let's get back to the paragraph. The first stop in the paragraph that we're going to look at is the distance between God and the creature. The distance between the creature-creator distinction. Now, this is a fundamental aspect of Christian faith that we need to grasp. That there is a tremendous difference between God and the creature. Now, this is not always the case. For example, in Mormonism, there's not a whole lot of difference between God and the creature, because the creature can become a god, right?
It's just a matter of progression, not ontology.
Exactly. So it's just a matter of degree, it's not a matter of quality. It's not a matter of what you are. It's a matter of what degree of what you are. So they believe that you can grow into godhood, that it's possible. And there are other faiths like that rather than trying to bring man up to God, they bring God down to man. For example, the Greeks believed that the gods were pretty much on the same ontological level as human beings in the sense that the Greek gods were basically just glorified human beings. They had no moral superiority. Yeah, they had no moral superiority. They were more powerful, so they were like Superman, basically. Now, if Superman was a bad guy, like what's the reverse Superman guy called?
Lex Luthor. Yeah.
No, he's no.
Bizarro.
Bizarro. That's it. Yeah, Bizarro. Or General Zod, right? So those guys are sort of corrupted, and yet all powerful. So yeah, that's sort of what the Greek gods were like, which why they were wholly incapable of giving you a moral framework for society, which is evidenced in both the Greek and Roman cultures. But nonetheless, different than that, the Christian understanding of God is that there is a fundamental, David used the word ontological, difference between God and man. And what that means is that God is wholly different than man. God is wholly different than any creature, whether it be man or angel or ant or whatever, or rock. God is different than creatures. There is a distinction between creature and creator. There is a fundamental and infinite difference. An infinite chasm cannot be crossed 1 inch at a time, cannot be crossed 1 mile at a time, cannot be crossed 1 light year at a time, because the distinction between infinity and finitude is qualitative, not quantitative. You don't just add to it to get to infinity. You can't do that. You will have an infinite number of light years to get from across an infinite distance. So you'll just never get there. So, but there's a fundamental difference an infinite difference between God and creation. Creation can never ascend to God. Satan tried to. He tried to, but he was a creature who tried to make his throne on the mountain, right? He tried to ascend to God, but he could not do it. The creature cannot get there. There's a fundamental difference, and that, by the way, is an essential part of Christian doctrine. If a person holds that you can become God, or that the gulf can be crossed by a quantitative distance, then they are not a Christian. That is a fundamental, necessary part of the Christian faith. So what's the difference then? Well, so we have God on one side, we have creation on the other side. God is what we call a necessary being. In other words, God cannot not exist. I use the double negative intentionally. God cannot not exist. God must exist. If anything else exists, God must exist. His existence is necessary. It has to be in order for anything else to be here. On the other hand, creation's existence is contingent. Now, you're familiar with that word, right? What does contingent mean? It's dependent on something else. It's connected to something else. It depends on its existence for something else. My existence is contingent on my parents, right? So I would not exist if they had not made me. But they themselves are contingent as well. They're contingent on their parents and their parents on their parents and their parents and their parents, all the way back until Adam and Eve, whose existence was contingent upon God creating them. But God's existence is not contingent. It's necessary. And that is fundamentally different from all of creation. God spoke all of creation into existence. We'll see that in a moment. But therefore, all creation is contingent on God. And God's existence is necessary. That's why we don't really necessarily need to argue for the existence of God, because it must be, or else nothing else can be. But God is eternal, and all of creation is temporal. Now, you heard David a few weeks ago say that it's kind of silly to speak of a point in time before the beginning, or the time before the beginning, right? Because if we have creation, understand that creation equals time, space, energy, flux capacitor, yes, and matter.
They're listening to you.
Kind of reminded me that we're live, so I need.
So creation equals time, space, energy, and matter. Even Einstein recognized that. E equals mc squared. Energy equals the mass times the speed of light squared. So that if you change one of these things, it alters the rest of them. This is all created. This is all created. If time is created, then that means here is time. If we put all of creation in this circle, God is out here. He's not in here, fundamentally. Now, God condescends, which we'll get to in a moment.
Interacts with.
But fundamentally, in terms of his being, God is outside of time. He sees all of time constantly as one thing that has happened. And so he is outside of time. We are temporal. We are inside of time, and we experience events as a succession of events: birth, childhood, adolescence, if you live, adulthood, old age, and then you die. Right. So we experience that in a succession of events. God sees it all right here, right now, constantly, all of it. He knows the beginning from the end from the beginning, the Bible says. Says it several times, actually.
Is there an end?
There is an end, yeah. Because what? It's temporal. So there is an end to temporal. Now, I would say that we are everlasting in the sense that we begin at one place in time and then we go on forever. God is eternal. He is outside of that whole progression. He stands outside of it, seeing it all as one whole.
Are we not created before we were created?
No.
Our mom's room?
Wait. We were created in our mother's womb, yes. What do you mean created before we were created? Are you asking whether or not our souls pre-existed our physical creation?
Just our souls.
What's that?
Just our souls.
No, human beings did not. There's no such thing as reincarnation. There's no such thing as a
reincarnation.
Okay, you're talking about the pre-existent soul then.
Yes.
Okay, so the thing about it is when God created human beings, he creates them as a body-soul dualism sort of thing. But when we are devoid of our body, we are not fully human. If we are devoid of a soul, we are not fully human. So no, we did not pre-exist in terms of our souls. We did not pre-exist our existence as a physical being. He creates us as a body-soul unity.
But he knew us before creation.
Well, yeah, as an idea,
Not
yes.
physical.
Yeah, he knew us because, and understand that word knowledge that it's referring to there is not a knowledge that responds to a progression of facts. It's a knowledge. God knew us because he planned to make us a certain way. It's kind of like saying, let's say that I'm going to go build a house and I've got the blueprints all drawn up. I've got all the things that I want. I know what my house is going to look like, but it's not yet built, but I know my house.
But
So-
he's not saying like I can say I know David. I know Pete.
Right.
He's not saying that. He's,
Right. Exactly.
Before
He just knew the blueprint.
He knew what he was going to create us to be, and he knew what we would be because he knew what providentially he would lead us to become. So that's the only way that he could know us because we did not exist at the beginning of time. Right.
Catechism question this morning will deal with that a little bit.
It will. Yes, I found some overlap here. So, so God is eternal. He is eternal. We are temporal. He is infinite, and we are temporal. Might be another way of putting that as well. Or we could say he is infinite. We are finite.
We have a starting point. He does not.
We are bound by many things. A starting point being one of them. We're bound by space. We're bound by time. We're bound by this sort of succession of events. We're bound by ignorance of knowledge. God is bound by none of those things. He is omniscient. He is omnipotent. He is omnipresent. He is bound. He is unbounded. He is out. He is infinite. And that is something that we have a sense of, but we don't really grasp objectively in our minds. We don't understand which is bigger, an infinite or two infinites?
That's nonsense.
That's nonsense. That is a nonsensical question. You
You
can't
see me
multiply.
like trying to really think of that. I'm like,
I know.
Another word for it is absurd.
Yes, it's meaningless because infinity literally means you cannot monitor, you cannot measure it. You can't, it's not a measurement. It's a state of existence. It's the infinite.
It's like saying this statement is false. What?
Yeah,
Nonsense.
or that true knowledge cannot be propositionally stated. So that's another one.
Same thing. Yeah.
It's a nonsensical statement. It's absurd. It's meaningless. Oops, wrong one. God is original, and we are derivative. God is original in the sense that he was the one who originally exists, and always has, and our existence and the existence of all of creation is derived from God.
It's a good word.
We are derived from God. And all meaning, by the way, is derived from God, God's knowledge, which gets into some interesting.
It comes from.
Yeah, it has to flow from at some degree, in all degrees. So virtually all non-Christian ways of thinking neglect or violate this basic distinction. Kind of like declaring Mother Mary co-redemptrix, or even saying that she also, mediates between God and man. No, she doesn't. She doesn't. Mother Mary doesn't hear you when you pray to her. Some demon is laughing at you, and Mother Mary is worshiping her son. That's what's going on in heaven right now. Mother Mary's not listening to anybody except her son. All non-Christian ways violate or neglect this basic distinction between the creature and the creation. This is from Cornelius Van Til. Mike gets some thumbs up for that. He says the Greeks, he's talking about this distinction between the Greeks and the modern era. He says the Greeks wanted to conceptualize the relation of God to man, and they came to the conclusion that both are eternal. They believe that both matter is eternal and God is eternal. Modern man wants to conceptualize the relationship between the two and comes to the conclusion that both are temporal. And so we have things like process theology, which tries to make God co-equal with the creation and they're both changeable. He says the Christian position stands squarely over against both by its starting point. The starting point is that God is eternal, that he is necessary, that he is infinite, and the creation, and that he is original, and that the creation is finite, derived, temporal, and dependent wholly upon him. John Calvin says this in his introduction to the Institutes. He says, no man can survey himself without immediately turning his thoughts toward God, in whom he lives and moves, because it is perfectly obvious that the endowments which we possess cannot possibly be from ourselves Nay, that our very being is nothing else than subsistence in God alone. In other words, we are wholly contingent and dependent upon him. And so when mankind starts to think about himself, why do I exist? Why am I the way that I am? He has to make reference to God, because his whole existence is derived from God. He is the creature. We are the creature. God is the creator. Man is the creature. God is the creator. So that is a tremendous distinction, and that is fundamental and basic in all Christian thought. So the distance between God and man, the creature, is so great that although reasonable creatures do we owe obedience to him as their creator, we as reasonable creatures do owe God our obedience as creator. That's the next point. So we are infinitely different than God, and as such, we owe him our obedience. This is a pretty basic point here. Where are we at now? 10 till. Okay. Both human beings and angels are what we might call rational beings. We philosophers tend to sometimes forget that the angels also exist as rational creatures, because, for example, Aristotle will say that mankind is different than all the other animals because he is the rational animal. Like, reason belongs to mankind alone. No, it doesn't. It belongs to angels as well. They're rational beings and moral beings, just like we are. And so rationality is not the distinctive character quality of the human being. What makes humans humans is not the fact that they reason, it's the fact that we're created in the image of God. Angels are not. That's the distinction between, and that is the difference. That is why Jesus died for us and not angels. He died for us because we are made in God's image, and we were made to worship him. We were made to fundamentally relate to him in a way that only human beings can. But both angels and humans are capable of reason, and therefore capable of reasoning morally. As rational beings, it is our duty to submit our reason to God. 2 Corinthians 10, I thought I said 10:15 for a minute. 2 Corinthians 10:5 talks about the fact that we must submit our thoughts to Christ, that we must take them captive and make them submit to Jesus, to submit to Christ. That is part of what it means to be a rational creature. By the way, angels are supposed to do that too. That we all must take, if we have been given reason, we must take that reason that we have been given, that ability to rationalize, and we must submit our thoughts to Christ. That is what it means to be a rational creature. So as rational beings, it is our duty to submit our reason to God. Also, as moral beings, it is our duty to submit our actions to God. So both our actions and our reasoning, our mind and our body, they must be submitted to God. That is our obligation. Are you staying with me so far? That's pretty basic stuff, right? That's like we've been talking about the law for how many weeks now? And the necessity of obeying God's law. What's that? Are you sure? Yeah. Okay.
Well, go read Revelations and look at the description of creatures that are there.
Yeah, the biblically correct angel ornaments.
We need some of those.
Eyes all around.
Now, here's the basic problem. Hello, come on in. Enjoy.
Yes.
Here's our basic problem. If there is a distinction between us and God that is so vast that we cannot possibly cross it, and if we are obligated to obey God, we've got a bit of a problem. Here's our basic problem. How can finite creatures who are morally obligated to obey God possibly do so when they are so unlike God that they cannot, by use of their natural faculties, even begin to imagine God, let alone know what is required of them or to begin to do it?
Almost like we need somebody to step in and be there for us.
Yeah, come between us and tell us what we need to do, tell us what God is like. Yeah, God is out here, we're in here, we can't get out there, but he can come to here.
And he did.
And he did. The problem at this point is not that we are sinners, the problem is that we are creatures. Understand that this is a problem even for Adam and Eve. It's a problem even for Adam and Eve before they sinned. It's a problem in the garden. Well, it's not a problem, but you understand what I'm saying. This is the issue. The issue is not an issue necessarily of sin. Now, sin definitely complicates and compounds the problem. That compounds the problem that even though God did come down to here, we still got problems. But our fundamental problem is the fact that God is out here and we're down here. And we can't get that way.
But he knew what we were gonna do and he still created us.
Oh, sure. Well, he knew what we were going to do because he planned what we were going to do.
I know, right? I just can't think this morning.
You're not going to be able to grasp that completely. That whole that picture on the board, that circle and God being outside of it.
Yeah, that's where we're at.
We know it's
My
true.
ways are higher than your ways. He wasn't lying when he said that.
The circle is like the universe, right?
Yes, the circle is creation.
Including time.
In God, all of these things, yes. Time, matter, space, energy, and then God is outside of that. And how does anything in here get to God? We can't. How does God? The only way that this can happen is if God comes here, which we'll see in just a moment. But I do want to make this point though. The problem is ontological. That means it's a problem with our existence. It's not just a problem with sin. Now sin does come later and complicate the issue. But even if there was no sin in the way, there's still issues here. There's still a problem. The problem is because we are creatures. Continuing on, yet they, that is us, they could never have attained the reward of life by some voluntary, but by some voluntary condescension on God's part. And now this is speaking of God needing to condescend to us and come to the circle, right? Come to the creation. The creation can't reach out to God. Building a tower to the heavens doesn't get you there. Okay, they found that out, but we've been trying to do it.
Don't you love how the text describes that? And God came down to the like you build your tower so high, God still has to come down to you.
Yeah. You could build it to Pluto, and God would still have to come down to you. But
Let's go down and see what can.
yeah. So there has to be a voluntary condescension. I keep wanting to say condensation, not the right word. Condescension. There has to be some voluntary condescension. Voluntary means that God is not required to do that. He doesn't have to do it. He chooses to do it. It's a voluntary act on his part. In fact, all acts of God are voluntary. He is free. We're not.
Yeah, we really need to beat that into our heads.
Yeah.
God does not owe grace to anyone in any sense whatsoever, ever.
He doesn't owe anything to anyone.
Yep. He has no obligations unless he himself makes them of himself.
Exactly. His own obligations are to his nature and to his word. So that's it. That's it. So we can't get out there. So God has to come to us. He has to condescend to us. Condescension basically means we are wholly unable to know what God requires of us unless he reveals it to us. We can't know. Nature doesn't say. Contrary to some Thomist philosophers nowadays, nature does not reveal it to us in that way. You say leave that up there?
He's gonna edit it.
You can edit it for me?
Unable.
Oh, did I say, oh
You
no.
said it right, it's just hypothetically.
I said it right. I must have typed it wrong. We are wholly unable. Yes. Okay. Yeah. That's well, obviously we're not perfect either.
There you go.
So we are wholly unable to even type a slide correctly. We are wholly unable to know what God requires of us unless he reveals it to us. God must reveal what he requires in ways that we as creatures can't understand. So if God comes to us and speaks a language that we can't understand, then it doesn't do us any good. But God reveals it to us, not only in language, but God reveals it to us in various other means as well. But God does reveal his will to us and what we are obligated to do. He must do so in a way that we can understand. And that's what it means by condescending. God has various ways of communicating. We don't have that many ways. I cannot I'm not Professor X, right? I can't telepathically link to your mind and put my thoughts in your head, and you can't do the same for me. We're creatures. God, on the other hand, has many. He's unfettered when it comes to communication. God can communicate whatever way he wishes to. But if he's going to communicate to us, and if we are going to understand it, he has to do it in a way that we can understand. He has to condescend to us using our language, our concepts, our terms. That's what God does for us. So, how has God expressed his revelation to us? Well, We have a record of his revelation, which is his revelation in the Bible. But we also see that he does so through creation. We also see that God reveals in our conscience and various other means. But God reveals, God expresses his revelation to us. But how is it expressed to us as people? How does God communicate with us and deal with us? Well, that brings us to our next thing. He has been pleased to express it by way of covenant. Now, God has to speak to us, and if we're going to know about God, he's got to speak to us. And if he's going to speak to us and reveal to us, he's got to do it in terms that we understand. And the way that he has chosen to do that is it has pleased him to express himself to us by ways of covenant. So when we talk about the covenant going forward, understand that this is what God is doing. It is necessary. The covenant is necessary in order that we might understand, that we might know what God is like. Now, I don't think we have time to go through this. No, we don't, do we? Luke 17:15 is the proof text of this. Luke 17:15 is basically Jesus he's teaching on forgiveness. He says, if your brother sins against you 7 times in a day and repents, you must forgive him. And the disciples are like, how, increase our faith. And Jesus' response by this parable that he tells is basically this. You don't need more faith. You just need to realize your place. Your place is to be an obedient servant. You don't need faith to do that. You just need obedience, and you need to do what you're told. This is good. This is Jesus' way of saying, look, I'm the master, you're the slave. By the way, the master and slave relationship is a covenant relationship. I know we hate slavery, and we like to talk down about slavery, but the master-slave relationship is a covenantal relationship. Does the slave serve the master, or the master serve the slave?
Yes.
The master rules over the slave, and one can speak of that as a means of service, but the slave is the one that serves the master, right? Does the creator owe the creature, or the creature owe the creator? And that basically is the point of this parable.
The creature doesn't owe, or the creator doesn't owe anything to anyone.
Exactly.
Or anything.
And so when the creature does what the creator says, then he's just doing what he's supposed to do. He's an unworthy servant. He is one who is. Does he need to be congratulated? Do we need a ribbon pinned on his chest? No. He's done what he's supposed to do. He is a servant. That's what he's supposed to do. And that's what Jesus is teaching in that parable. I encourage you to go back and read that. But the relationship of slave to master and creator to creature are covenantal in nature. And understand that. Our relationship to God is expressed in terms of the covenant. Sam Waldron says this. He says the confession, this particular question of the confession, grounds the necessity of the covenant in a creator-creature distinction. Thus, the need for covenant goes beyond sin and redemption. It is necessary because we are creatures, not because we are sinners. Now, the covenant includes the fact that we are sinners and how God relates to us there as well. But it would be necessary even with Adam and Eve. And there was a covenant with Adam in the garden as well. Hosea refers to that covenant, actually. But yeah, this gets us into what a covenant is. I don't know. We might want to make that part of the next one then. But a covenant basically is an agreement between people. And it fleshes out the expectations of both. And God does that. And as we continue looking at the covenant, we will see that sort of thing fleshed out. Just know this, that the necessity of the covenant is such that we are creatures and God is the creator. And if we are going to know anything about him, he must come to us. And he is pleased to come to us on the basis of covenant. Old Testament and New, forevermore, he has always come to us on the basis of covenants. So we will see that as time goes on. Let's go ahead and be dismissed then in prayer and move upstairs. Our Father in heaven, God, thank you